Hello? Well, that's it. The marriage is definitely doomed. Absolutely no question about it. You see, and I'll tell you why. Look at what's happened. There's Meghan Markle. She thinks she's going to be the star of the British royal family, and she comes into Britain and she discovers she's not a star. She's actually a fairly minor supporting act in a long list of higher ranking people, and she didn't like that. Oh, no, she did not. And as irritating as she was to the Queen, she wasn't booted out. She had to go under her own steam, first of all to Canada, but that wasn't big enough for her, was it? So, to California, where she had all her media mates there, dragging Harry along with her as a sort of, well, fifth wheel, really, and he's going to be her ticket, the person who gets her the entree to all the best places. Yeah, but she is going to be the star, especially as she's taken him out of his pond and, it's like a fish that's been taken out of a pond and then is required to flap around on dry land. Not too successful, you might think. And then he goes and he writes this book. And it's a huge seller. It's the bestseller. It's the highest selling book in apart from Harry Potter. Oh, we can't mention that. Apart from Harry Potter, the biggest seller in the entire world. And even more, he's saying he's got more dirt to dish. But he didn't do it on the grounds that his family, he had too much respect for his family. Oh, yes. Well, if he had too much respect, why is he thinking of writing a second one? And I'll tell you something, that second one won't be written as long as he's married to Meghan Markle. When he's on his own and has nowhere else to go, he might write the next one simply to keep body and soul together. One has to pay money for the caviar sandwiches, doesn't one? Okay, so why do I know that union is doomed? Because Meghan Markle is not going to stand for this. And that second book will not get written as long as he is married to Meghan Markle. In fact, I can very much imagine Markle the Duchess of Sussex, going to the royal family, not necessarily physically, but saying, look, as long as I'm married to him, that book won't get written. But if we split up, I won't have any control over him anymore. How much is it worth? I could just imagine her doing that. I'm not saying she will. I'm not saying she has done it. I'm just saying I can imagine it. I'm protecting myself here. Anyway, as long as Harry and Markle, Duchess of Sussex, are married, then that second book, won't be published. And do you know why? Because Meghan doesn't want it. I will take another example, okay? I'm going to read you some 19th century poetry, and then I'm going to read you the beginning of a 19th century novel, okay? Bear with me. This is about 10 lines here. I know a lot of people will find this boring. Just let's go through it for a minute. All right. Earth, ocean, air, beloved brotherhood, if our great mother has imbued my soul with aught of natural piety to feel your love and recompense the boon with mine, if dewy morn and odorous noon, and even with sunset and its gorgeous ministers, and solemn midnight's tingling silentness, if autumn's hollow sighs in the sere wood, and winter robing with pure snow and crowns of starry ice the grey grass and bare boughs, I could go on. It's very nice. You have to read it very slowly, though. You have to think about it very carefully, and let's face it, it's hard work, right? Now the first lines of the novel I'm going to read to you. It starts like this, in the form of a letter. You will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure my dear sister of my welfare and increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. What have I just read you? Well, that is the opening lines of, sorry, dog here. That is the opening lines of a little novel called Frankenstein by a young woman, very young, 18 years old, called Mary Shelley. And that was written in 1818 or 1817. And there are different dates given for it. I suppose one might be the publication and one might be the actual time she wrote it. Anyway, it starts with a fellow writing to his sister saying, all your ideas that this was going to end in disaster, so far everything is absolutely hunky-dory, no need to worry, I'm fine and I'm really confident in the success of my mission. Well, we all know how that turns out. The other thing I read you, which was a bit of poetry, earth, ocean, air, beloved brotherhood, if our great mother has imbued my soul, that is Percy Bysshe Shelley, and his poem was called The Spirit of Solitude. How many of you have actually read that poem or have even heard of the poem? None. How many? Well, none. And very few. Okay. And if you have heard of it, congratulations. Now, as for Frankenstein, how many of you have heard of Frankenstein? I rest my case. Can you imagine how galling it was for Shelley, who had worked for years? He was 23 when Mary Shelley, at the age of 18, wrote Frankenstein. He had been writing poetry for some years. He had no recognition for his poetry at all, not till some time after he died. And he died in a boating accident, and sometimes I wonder whether he just went out onto Lake Geneva in his boat with a storm brewing out of sheer despair for what had happened, because for all his work and his polishing of poetry and his university education and his classical references and all the rest of it, for all that, his 18-year-old, more or less wife wrote the book that everybody knew and that went down in history. I mean, it was a sensation even when she did it. Maybe he knew. I mean, he was a perceptive fellow, Shelley. I think he could see where that book was going. And he could see that it was going to overshadow everything he'd done, which indeed it did do. Now, back to Meghan Markle, who I would not compare with Shelley in all except her rotten luck. She worked reasonably hard. I mean, she's not a great actress, but she seems to have worked fairly hard in one way or another at positioning herself and doing her job. Yeah. So she's worked quite hard at being this celebrity, and then she marries a sap she knows can be easily led and can give her a ticket, but who won't get in her way, as she, as many people have said, is probably heading for American politics and can see that Harry might be an asset there. And then Harry writes this book, and everything she's done, I mean, it's like, you know, a supernova next to a candle. So either she carries on with him and the royal family is safe from the second version, or the whole thing falls apart. She gets so angry with him for overshadowing her that she simply can't stand being around him anymore. One or the other, but whichever way, karma is beautiful. Okay, well, yeah, that's it. I am Granniopteryx. I am on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. I have a dog who loves cuddles. If you want to support my channel, one of the best things you can do is like this video. Click that like button, share it and subscribe. And as I keep telling people, if you're on YouTube, just check your subscription is still active. Also, you can help me financially, buy me a coffee, or all the stuff is in the links either below or to the side or up, depending on your browser. So if you want to contribute, just go to the description, and if you want to know which other channels I upload these videos onto, again, in the description. I always let you know when I've uploaded a video on @granniopteryx on Twitter, Gab and Parler. Okay, back to the cuddles. Till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the granniopteryx design or Granbo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.granniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.